Okay, cool. Well, let me just go ahead and introduce Zoe. So an official introduction, but then I'll just share a little bit of personal background. So Zoe was a resident of our state of Oklahoma, our great state of Oklahoma, for several years. I first met her when she was working as an independent Power BI consultant and just really doing such a great job for all of her clients that I kept hearing about, oh, oh yeah, I found this Zoe Douglas, like she does this excellent work. And I would see her contest submissions on Maven Analytics and other sites and just be blown away by her work. So that was really cool. And then I was like, oh, she lives in Oklahoma. So she actually was also a co-leader for our group for just a few months, and was a very instrumental part of that. And then, of course, as every smart company does, Microsoft eventually came calling and wanted to hire Zoe on their team. And so since 2 years ago, I think, Zoe, she's been a product
It's
manager and now a
two
senior
years,
product manager.
like as of a week ago. So yes.
Okay, cool. Nice. That's what I remembered. Um, Yep, and we got to have a lunch in Oklahoma City before you took off for Washington State there. So, but she has been doing a great job for Microsoft first as a product manager, now I believe a senior product manager, and working very closely and instrumentally on the Power BI product team, releasing new features, and you keep seeing her name associated with announcements. But then what I love is like you carried on, and she's carried on her great content and just generous spirit and willingness to share about what she knows and what she's doing and what's going on right into the Microsoft culture. And like, rather than, she's raised their game, I think, because if you look on the blog, her posts are always like the most informative. In fact, as a kid, and then we last time for our meeting, we even like just walked through one step by step. So after doing that, I mentioned that to her on LinkedIn, and she was like, "Hey, I could just come next month." Oh yeah, that would be even better. Let's have you come, please. So yes, maybe this is your gateway to working for Microsoft. I don't know, but with that, I'll turn it over to Zoe to talk more about. She's going to talk today about more about DAX Query View, which we talked about in January, but also Copilot, calculation groups if you're familiar with those or unfamiliar with those, and then honestly, she's a great resource for so many things. And so I also just put in the content, ask Zoe anything. I did that without asking her, so I guess that's a little presumptuous, but feel free to
It's
kind
all
of raise
good.
questions, I think. Okay, I appreciate it. Yeah, okay, thanks a lot. Okay, Zoe, if you don't mind, I'm just going to turn it straight over to you, please.
Wonderful. Well, thank you, Brent.
Okay.
And yeah,
Yeah.
so I have nothing but appreciation for Brent. Brent was a huge supporting factor when I was in Oklahoma. Invited me to kind of join the user group. I didn't realize I actually had as much to share as I do, and Brent was extremely encouraging. So you guys are all in great hands with Brent. He does a fantastic job. So a couple of corrections to what Brent said in my lovely intro. So I applied for a job at Microsoft and got it. So they didn't come calling. And if you are interested, there is the leader of our org. She puts out a Power BI report with all the opening jobs for Power BI and Azure Data. So if you're interested in joining, go ahead and apply. I literally saw a posting on Twitter and I responded. I was like, that sounds interesting, and I applied, and that's how I got this job. So. Um, I would have been perfectly happy continuing Power BI consulting forever, honestly. So this was the only thing that kind of lured me out of that track. So yeah. And then, so yeah, so I can get into, so a lot of things that I've been working on personally, and I can talk about other stuff too, but the stuff I've been working on personally at Microsoft is a DAX Query View. I have a couple Copilots and Direct Lake, kind of, the semantic model storage mode on one lake. That's a big one of mine as well. So, and calculation groups and bringing in any kind of tooling missing from desktop that analysis services can do, right? So calculation groups is one of them, very popular one. People were using all the time. You had to use kind of tablet editor to author them. Um, but yeah, so now you can actually author them in desktop, and I can give a demo of that. So Brent, how do you want me? Which topic would you like me to start on?
That's great. I would say just for continuity's sake, it probably
Mhm.
makes sense if you wanted to share some things about DAX Query View. Really, we went through most of your kind of introductory blog post and demo together. But before we do that, I did see that Laura had her hand up for a question.
Oh, go ahead, Laura.
No, I got click happy and meant to react with a oh, happens
Well,
often.
thank you. Usually when I get click happy, I hit the big red button, and that doesn't work out so well. So if I drop out at any point, I'll be right back. All right, so let me go ahead and share my screen, and we'll get into a little bit of DAX Query View. Then we can kind of transition to some of the other topics. So let me just share my screen. Um, okay, you see my screen?
Yep, we got
Okay,
it.
so I went and grabbed, I found this actually finally on a sample site. If you're looking for this report, you can find it, this one in the samples page. You can download it here in the Get Samples for Power BI. And the other one that Brent, I did watch the recording for the one you did where you went over my DAX Query View. And that one I also have open here, this guy. And one of the things, actually, before we get into from the last time, you did one on the, uh, ooh, sorry, I am using different build here. All right, so you did a quick query on the district, and you'll notice it runs and runs and runs, right? This is actually a known bug. It's because of this guy. This is a binary file. So if you just comment that guy out, whoop, somehow messed it up. Oh, and a comma, right? There you go. So now it'll run. And even if you try to use that guy in the district column here in a visual, uh, this one, I think, right? You're going to get an error, right? So there's something, this is kind of a limitation on the binary image. We do have a bug. We're going to try and handle it a little bit more carefully than just seeing what the running icon looks like, which it does very well. So there's little icons down here.
That's interesting. Okay, so because that was a binary large object field, which frankly I've never thought to put in a Vertipack file before, but
Exactly.
okay, yeah, but that was the cause of that. So just do watch out for that in case you're using the query view and it's spinning and spinning. That's okay. Thanks. That's good to know.
Yeah, we will. We have a bug for it. We'll fix that. Eventually, we'll fix that in the next few months as well. Whereas we just won't show the column, right? Or we'll do some other messaging, that to handle that one a little bit more gracefully. So we have. So you did a great job, Brent. Honestly. So we have this. We do have a sample query that will show immediately when you come in here. You can click here, and we have all those quick queries. The other thing, so we also have the Model Explorer, right? So you can kind of see this stuff. One of the things we wanted to bring in was a way to kind of drag them over and add them into the DAX Query View. We're still working on kind of how to do that in a nice way. But that is something that we're looking at. But this at least gives you, so if you're here, you want to kind of see what your relationships are as you're writing the queries, you can quickly see them here. And then get to your tables and all that kind of stuff. Let's see. So let's go look at, like you can go and, as you saw, you can do those quick queries. You can do those column statistics. Let's see. Now see we have some, if you have any issues with any of the columns in your model, this one has a kind of a number of issues, it seems. You'll just get an error, right? It will say where it is. So it'll say 1562 here, right? So this is a very long query. So let's go see if we can find 1562. So there's that mod. So it's looking in this customer ID, and it's trying to figure out the evens, right? So you can, do that kind of stuff. That would break the whole query as well. So I'm not quite sure that one's giving an issue, but it's too large or too small. So I can look into that later. But what's cool about it is you can actually do it on an individual column too, right? So you can come in here. We have specific ones for, this is for a string, right? So we have these kind of ones. And then for a number, we have different ones. Now you'll see the median and the mean and all those zeros and evens and odds come into play as well. And then you'll also have one for dates. Let's see the date table in here. I haven't actually played around with this model very much, right? So you can do a column statistics here, and it's going to give you kind of more date specific ones, and that's where you're going to see the range in days, the range in months, and the range in years. So this is, only 5 months of data. which is interesting. So let's see. And then the cool one about it is we have, where is my analysis text? So if you have like this one, right, you can do a quick query, you can do evaluate. Now you can kind of see that measure. Obviously, this is very boring. So let's bring in maybe the year. Let's see if there's a year column. Maybe we'll do product. I actually don't know what's in this model. Right, so we'll do it by product maybe. I don't think that's actually going to show much. We need a time one. So let's go see what's in that. Maybe there's a month in here somewhere. There we go. Right. So now you can see a bit more interesting values coming in. But what's cool is now you can kind of see what, if you hover, if I had a description, you would see it. But also you can kind of see the DAX formula. And you can, now that we have the light bulb actions. Now the light bulb actions only show up if you don't have a defined block, right? We're working on a way to have it work with an existing defined block, but we don't want to get you into a state where you've done some of kind of this quick actions and you're now in a bad state and it doesn't run, right? As much as possible, right? So here I can now define or define with references. This is the same as kind of the quick queries here. You can define and evaluate and define with references and evaluate. You can do it from here. So if you already have it in an evaluate or an existing query, you can now bring it in. So you can bring it in with the measures that kind of are part of it as well, right? So I can do the whole stack in one go, and I can make changes and see how that changes the output, not only for the one I'm looking at, but also if I do it for an underlying one as well. So here, if I do sold times 2, I can run it. Doesn't really do a whole lot, but you can kind of see how these all play together. All right. And then, so now if I wanted to, the cool thing about doing it this way is you're already in a query, but if I did it actually from here, it'll put all those measures in the summarized columns as well. All right. And you can just close these as well. The other thing for DAX Query View is you have, like it is a, you can kind of format and you can use the command palette. There's a lot of different actions in there. You can do the find and replace. One of the things that we had a little debate on is the space versus tabs, right? And there's actually a command palette to change them to spaces or tabs if you'd like, right? This is kind of the same, they call it the Monaco editor that you see in VS Code, right? So we put this here to kind of run these DAX queries. Let's see what else we have here.
Zoe, would you mind that command palette?
Mhm.
What all can you do from there? Because I think probably not everybody on here is very familiar with VS Code, and kind of how to use that feature.
Yeah, so that's a great question. So a lot of them are like there's some like keyboard shortcuts, right, you could use in the DAX formula bar. Those ones are kind of available as well. But now you can actually kind of see the shortcut keys as well, right? So I can copy the line up, right? So I was here. Let me make this a little bigger. I was here, and so I'm on line 12. I can come in here and do copy line up, right? The shift. You can also do shift alt up arrow, right? That's a very easy to remember keystroke. But you can copy things. You can do, this. Let's see. You can undo, redo. Delete all left. Delete duplicate lines, right? I just highlighted my duplicate line. It seems, right? There's a whole bunch of stuff in here. Let us see. Delete selection. So let's see. I mean, you can hit the delete key. Let's see what this delete selection. I'm trying to find interesting things to do in here. Delete. You can even do like folding ranges, right? You'll notice there's folding ranges. So let's do a folding range here, right? So now I have this kind of weird folding range if I wanted to kind of hide some columns. Folding ranges also happen on tabs or indents, right? So you can collapse your code. When we're doing the format query, we try to make it so that it makes sense for when you actually do the collapsing and expanding, right? So that's one of the considerations we had for the format query. Format query is our kind of in-house kind of DAX formatting, right? It's using our own logic, and you can use it offline and everything like that's part of the client. Let's see. So I can format that. And then, yeah, so you have these kind of collapse and expand options, which is kind of cool. Let's see what else we have in here. We can do folding, so you can collapse and do the folding. You can go to bracket. There's a ton of things in here. Honestly, I haven't even like fully looked at all this stuff. Some of them, if you find anything that's broken, just let me know. We are aware of a few of them that don't work just yet. We're still working on getting those done. So yeah, so there's just so many things that you can do, like transform to different cases. Right. I haven't even played with that one yet, but yeah. Show or focus hover. I don't know what that means. It didn't seem to do much. Anyway, so those are kind of things. The find and replace is kind of cool. I was playing around with it, so you can even do regex here, right? So if you want to do a regex expression to find something in a code, you can. So you can come in here and you can do quick queries, maybe like, define all in the model. Now I want to see, okay, well, how many of these are using a calendar table? I'm not that good at regex, so I won't try and example that. But now I can kind of see, okay, where are all my calendar references? Okay, there they are. I see them. I can change them. One of the ones that I like to do is creating measures in DAX Query View, right? So you can't really, there's no new measure button or anything like that. You have to go to kind of model view to see that. But one of the ways I like to do it is I will do define and evaluate. Now I can highlight this and right click and say change all occurrences. So now I've highlighted all occurrences of net sales. So I can say my new measure. And now I can simply put my DAX formula here. So times 100. And now I can run it. Maybe it's too much. And then now I can actually just add this measure to my model, right? So I've gone ahead and created this. Now this change can only be undone with additional edits. We worked a lot on this string. It's not meant to be too scary. The other thing is once you make a model change, obviously there's no undo, right? And that's the same for kind of any model action, even if I did it over in the model view. Now, as far as the text editor, right? The editor here, you can always Control Z and undo, redo, whatever you want to do here. So no problem there. So yeah, so that is kind of how the other thing that's cool about it is all the visuals are DAX queries, right? So you can come in here, optimize ribbon, and go to performance analyzer. And now we can kind of see all those. Let's pick one, let's do net sales. And now you can actually put that query over here in the DAX query view, right? So you don't have to go and paste it into DAX Studio to see, or you can always have copied it here, but now you can actually just go quickly put that in the DAX query view. Now these will all create in new tabs, so it's not going to try and overwrite what you've done before, so you can just close these out. Now they don't go back, right? So there's just a one-way ticket over to the DAX query view. If you want to make changes to the visual, you'd have to still come and actually make the change to the visual, right? But now you can kind of see what's happening. You can, try and figure out, oh, okay, I didn't realize I had a local date table, right? Now you'll see that red squigglied because in desktop we don't see those time intelligence tables. And that's why that's red squiggling here, but it will run. We had an early demo we did, I think last build, where I could even do a right click and like inspect and run the query for like this bar or this visual, right? We had kind of an action here. That proved to be a little bit more challenging to implement. So in Natural Desktop, so we still want to do that, but it's just coming a little later. But that one was kind of a cool one. You could actually get down to an individual data point. Now, what's cool about this query is like even if I cross filter, right, you can see that it ran again. Now it's cross highlighted, and I can come into where's my store breakdown. I don't know where this one is. Hold on, there it is, right? And now I can actually run that here, and it's going to have that cross filter already actually in here as well. So it's kind of neat. It gives you really the state of the visual in a DAX query. One of the things that people have been asking for is like a DAX query visual. We don't have any bandwidth for that one just yet, but I thought that was an interesting ask where you can actually define a visual and have it as a DAX query and have it as a visual, right? You'll notice that the syntax for these are very specific. That's so you can kind of switch them out for different visuals and it'll kind of keep things in there. All right, so now you can also simply write. I mean, we have a bunch of quick queries over here to get you going, get you started. Like I haven't typed a single line of DAX query while I'm using this, and of course you can, right? So you can do evaluate, and I can say, let's do summarize columns, right? And then now you'll see we have the IntelliSense and we have information here. If these get too much, you just hit escape and they go away. Like this one has some interesting things in it here. And you can always hit escape. Now, the other thing you can do is, like say I didn't hit escape, you can also do what you can do in the DAX formula bar, which is to hold down Control and hit Enter, and it'll go to the next line without doing any of those IntelliSense items, right? So now I really do not know much about this model, so let's go take a look. So we have categories. Let's do category. Let's do product category. And we'll do, see now that one got a little bit excited. We are trying to tone down the IntelliSense a little bit here. And then we'll do sales and total sales. Well, maybe not that one. Let's see, net sales, we'll do net sales. Right, and I can just run it, right? So the other thing you'll notice that you can copy it. So you can click that button, it'll copy it. It currently does it as kind of a tab delimited. We're working on kind of making it nicer so that if you have, like if you're using the info functions and there's kind of line breaks in a cell, it'll kind of break when you paste into Excel. We're working on a new one to do it where it kind of delimits properly. So hopefully that will help in better scenarios. And we're working on different ways of like, word wrap and some column fixes here. And if you do have multiple evaluates, they will show as well. Someone have a question?
Sorry, Zoe, that might have been me. I was going to kind of just break in and ask, like, one of my other favorite features that you've been working on is the PBIP. I was kind of curious, like, do these DAXs get captured in a Power BI project as well? And it sort of leads into just other more general questions about how preview features like get merged and then released into GA. You can, and I don't mean to stack questions. So, would your DAX queries be in your Power BI project?
Yes. So, so one of my colleagues is actually doing Rui is doing the PBIP, but yeah, they are saved in their own little folder called DAX queries, and they'll show up as query1.dax, query2.dax, query7.dax. So they'll show up as individual files in there. So that's similar to like the way kind of DAX Studio has a .dax file. If you save as on your system, like you can even move them in there and then reopen it up in desktop, and you'll see those queries show up in this interface. So yes, so they are with your PBIP. Visual calculations won't show up. Yeah, so you can see visual calcs. So if it's visual calcs, you will see them here. They're kind of red squiggly right now. We haven't built in kind of the parser support for all that new functionality just yet. That's coming. We were just talking about that this week. And then, but they do show up here. And I don't know if they show up in the IntelliSense, it's like the running sum and stuff like that. That one I'm not sure about. So let's see.
Awesome.
I don't
Okay,
I
thank
don't
you.
think they show up here, but they will if you kind of bring them from the performance analyzer. All right. I haven't fully done the visual calcs just yet, so I was practicing in case somebody asked me earlier this morning. So, all right. So let me see if there's any other questions on. Oh, the other things we have fixed recently is like for the first month or so, we weren't showing like Boolean values in the result grid. That is fixed now. There was some formatting bugs with the format query. Most of those are fixed now. There's one still remaining, but we're working on fixing that for the next release. But for the most part, it works just fine. And then, yeah. The other thing we had to do was like some of the newer DAX functions like would tend to red squiggly a lot, but we're fixing those and getting those brought in as well. All right. Now another cool thing is, now this one, let's do this one. This is the last one is, I need to, this one to evaluate. Now if I hover on this, you see the name, you see it's a measure, and you see that DAX formula. Now, if I had added a description, it also shows there. So it's going to segue to my little Copilot, which will actually create a measure description for you, right? So this is brand new as of February. You do need a Fabric capacity to run it, but you click the button and it's going to give you that measure description, right? So say keep it. And it's going to add it to here. And now you'll see it when you kind of hover. And now if I go back to DAX Query View, let's see if it shows it immediately, and it does. So now you'll see that description there as well. So for any of the Copilot features, right, anything you can do to kind of annotate your model is actually a very important step, right? Naming your measures nicely, you know, giving Copilot as many hints as possible as to what it's doing will always be a better experience with any of the Copilot features. Right, so this one's pretty cool. You can go one by one. We're doing it one by one right now. We do want to kind of bring in a bulk add capability soon. So this is the latest one that we just put out. Now this one also works in the Power BI service, right? So we have the Model Explorer over here, which has some pretty cool things. You can add the calc groups. This is where you would add calc groups. And even if you're editing the model in the service, you'll also be able to do this feature, and you also see the Model Explorer. You also be able to do calc groups now, right? So it's very cool. Let me see if I have it open here, right? So I'm in one of my workspaces. And if I go to let me pull this over here for a second. I'm actually going to do this off screen just a smidgen. So one sec. If you guys have any questions, I'm happy to tailor any of my talk to those questions. So, all right, so here I have one of my demo spaces.
Zoe, one thing I might mention before you go into the calc groups is that maybe we've talked some about them in our group, and but we probably have different levels of familiarity, mostly because you had to go outside into a different tool, to use them in the past.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, even a primer, or just kind of whenever you get into that topic, would probably be welcome.
Absolutely, right? Okay, so here I'm actually in one of my direct lake models, which I'm editing in the service. And I can also do all of these things, including calc groups, right? So I already have my calc group. I don't know if it looks like I just demoed this one. So calculation groups are pretty cool, right? They allow you to, I should have had my calc group demo running, but I don't just yet. So sorry about that, right? So we can add one to this model. So here, let's go ahead and let's just go ahead and duplicate a page and really quick, and I'll show you. So if you wanted to do kind of a way to, actually I used to have a demo one, but basically if you want to have a way to kind of show last year and compare it year over year, right? So you want to show last year, this year, and a year over year, and a year over percent for, say, sales, right? But then you're like, oh, I want to do that for costs, and I want to do that for profit, and I want to do it for a bunch of measures in my model. You're like, but now I have to create all these measures to do the same thing. And I'm basically copying, pasting the DAX formula over and replacing the measure that it's applying to, right? And that's where calc groups can help you, right? So it creates that kind of template, that DAX pattern, and then now you can just apply it on any measure you want, right? So let's do calc groups here, right? Now I'm gonna go ahead and actually this is not the best. Let's see if they have another template that might be a little bit easier. I think they're all using the 3-1. There is one that has like just a single box as well, but it looks like we don't have one on this one. So we'll just go with this guy. Actually, I'm just going to create a blank one, right? Make a boring visual. I'm so sorry. Right, so here I have, I'm just going to do a table. And I'm going to bring in, let's do number of returns, right? The return amount. And then we're going to bring in, say, the month. Right, so we have a date hierarchy. Right, we have that. Let me just minimize this guy. And I'm actually going to make this into a measure here. And I'm going to just bring this down to the month level. Right, so this is actually not a very good example because there's actually not a lot of data in this this model. Let me go switch over to the other one, which may be a better example of showing you this. All right, so here we have the store one, and I'm going to bring in, let's see how many months are in this guy. All right, so we have some more months here. This is good. Let's see if we have, I think this is just 1 year of data. Let's see. Let's see. Quite sure how they did that one. Right, so there's our year, and we have the month, right? It looks like we have 2 years of data. All right, so let's bring this down here. And then we can bring in one of our sales measures. Right, so here we have total sales. Right, now if I want to see last year, we actually have one here, right? So we have last year, and we have the variance, and we have, you know, this kind of information already kind of built in. And if you see the formulas, you know, you probably want to do the same kind of formula for each one. But instead, if I wanted to bring this in for, if I wanted to do this instead, like holistically, then I can do a calc group. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'll show you where you can find what I'm going to use this example. I have these examples in one of my blog posts here. Let's see. I have, must have gone back. So there's my info functions, which we can get into as well. Let's go to, this is available. So now we put the Model Explorer and Calc Group authoring in the service, but there's actually one here, deep dive into the Model Explorer and creating calc groups. And here I kind of go through step by step, and I have 3 examples. Right? One is a daily averages, the other one is a time intelligence, and the other is a conversion. And towards the end of it, I have some kind of gotchas and how to account for them. Right, so here I have, let's do the time intelligence one. So time intelligence, so you go to model view and you go create a calc group. Right, so let's go to the model view. And we'll go ahead and to the model, and we're just going to go over here. Now you can just click the calc group, or you can come here and say new calc group. Now it's going to say discourage implicit measures, right? So when you add a calc group, implicit measure will be discouraged. So you'll need to create explicit measures to aggregate data columns. So what this means is once I've done this, I can no longer kind of drag like a data column like goes numeric into a visual and have it kind of aggregate there as a sum or average or whatever you wanted. You actually have to define them as measures that show up in your model. Now, it is discouraged because if you've already have a visual that is doing an implicit measure, we are not going to break it, right? So it'll still run just as possible, but it just will block you in the UI from kind of adding more. All right, so we have the first one, and you'll see this syntax for selected measure. And that just means the measure that I've applied this to. And you're like, well, how do I apply it to a measure, Zoe? I'll get into that in just a second. Let's go ahead and first create it. Right, so you can create the name of the table, which is the calc group. And then I usually use show as my calc group column name because it's going to show in a slicer. This is kind of what the slicer is going to show, and then it's going to show these calc items if you have them as a calc item there. Right, so now I'm going to add in, I'm actually going to skip those guys, and I want to do prior year. You can just add a few of them. So we can add new calc group. Now, this is different. This model doesn't use the date time that I was using before. So I'm going to go ahead and change this to, I hope it has a date. table. Let's see. Let's see. Time. All right, so in the time table. And looks like we don't have it in this one. So this one's gonna be a tricky one to do. So let's actually switch over, and instead of doing that one, we'll do the moving averages. So even the averages actually requires that one. So this is a bad example, right? So we'll need to have a proper date table. Let's just go ahead and add one. I think we have, let's go look at this data. So what happens when I don't pay attention before I go through this. Alrighty, let me just remove this guy. And let's go over here and check out what we actually have going on in this table. Now we have a reporting period ID. I see. So we have, this is kind of our date column, but it's not really formatted as a date here, right? So we have the month is actually a date. Interesting. Okay. So this is actually the date and looks like it is unique. So if I go ahead and mark this, oops, sorry, that wasn't the button I meant to do. So mark this as a date. It is marked, right? So it is marked on that month column. It's interesting. They've named it month. All right, so I'm good now. I can go back to my time intelligence here, and I can actually still complete my time intelligence example. So here, instead of same period last year, we're going to use that month column. Right. Ta-da, and we're done with that one. And now we can continue on with our example. So I'm going to do the year over year next. And add this guy in. So this is our year over year. So now it's going to look. So this one's kind of an interesting one. Let me see if I can zoom in a little bit. You'll see that it's actually doing the selected measure, but it's actually now calculating using the calc group that I'm doing. So that one I just did that prior year, it's actually going to use that here and say, calculate the current value and then, you know, show it as, and then minus the prior year value, which is quite interesting. This is actually called sideways recursion. It's one of the things that we allow in calc groups. And I learned that term after I joined the product team. So if you've never heard of that term, that's fine. So I was like, oh, okay, that's what that's called. I just called it referencing the other time measure. But now, so here we have 4 of them made. What you can do with calc items, if you click on this calc item node, you can actually put them in any order you want, and they will show up here. And then when you use them in a slicer, they'll show up like that way as well. So here we go. If I go add a slicer, let's see, where's my slicer? There it is. Could use a new slicer, but let's just use this one. Now, where is my? You'll notice that the calc groups will also show with their own icon. They're going to show up the top here. I'm going to bring that in. Now you're going to see those calc items that I created, right? And I can say, okay, what is the prior year value, year over year? This is not very exciting. I need to do a month over month, I think, here. Yeah, this is only 1 year. Oh, this is not going to be a good example either. I thought there was 2 years in here. Let's see. Oh, there is 3 years, but the data is only for the current year. Ah, that is unfortunate, right? So let me go ahead and open up a different example. Let's see. Should have one here. Let me just go find it real quick. So this is not going to be a good example to kind of show you what's happening unless we actually can see all of the things that it does. So just give me one moment while I go ahead and find. I think this one is good. A better example to show you. But now, so calculation groups have like, these are kind of the common like scenarios that you can do with calc groups, right? So you can do the time intelligence showing your kind of statistics. You can do like another one I have in here is for the rolling average, right? So I have some rolling averages where I can have a daily average, a monthly average, so I can see kind of the average daily over a period of time. Another one is the conversion. The conversion one is a pretty typical example. So if you have different currencies, you want to convert them, you can do that with a calculation group as well. I even have on my blog a one I did a couple years ago. Let me see. Sorry, it's in this little my little team sharing thing is kind of in my way a little bit. Here it is. Right, so if you come here, I have one in here where I used a calc group to actually just show the current uses item. So you could have a slicer that says just show mine, because it could get the user principal name of the person looking at the report, or I can see everybody, right? So it's not something I wanted to kind of handle in a security context. It's just a kind of ease of showing my own items, right? So that's using calculation groups. Now here showing how you would do it in Tabular Editor, right? But now you can do it. I need to update my blog with my new fancy thing here. All right, so here I have broken it apparently, right? So I have rolling averages. But here I have just a kind of simple line chart, and I have this thing, and then I think I already I have one calc group. This is just a placeholder, right? So we can add it here. Now this one is really cool because you can actually see, like if I bring this over, and I'm going to change this to a matrix here, you'll see we have, let's see, my fiscal year, and we can have order quantity, right? So we have multiple years here. And now I can bring in that calc group. So let me just go ahead and quickly set that back up over here. Right, so we have my calc group. And intelligence. Oh, this is my big one. I didn't realize I opened the big one. This is the one ones I have in my blog. I have 1,400 measures. So let's try this one. So it's still doing all right. I created a bunch of measures for this one just to kind of test out the Model Explorer, how it would handle a lot of measures. And it does really good. Okay, so let's go back to this guy. We'll go back to our time intelligence here. Right, we'll just go copy again. There we go, and we'll come here. Right, so I had the rolling average one in here earlier, but I removed it for a demo. Now let's go get the prior year. We'll add this guy in. This one should just work. I think I have my date table in here. Now the other thing, if you're using these, especially these DAX functions, it does like to have that date table marked before they'll work. You can also, instead of marking date, you can just specify the key column, and that should work as well. Right, so we have our year over year, and we're going to grab that year over year percentage. Now the year over year percentage one is one that I wanted to kind of call out specifically because how the calculation groups, it uses the format string of the measure itself, right? So if you have a currency or if you have a whole number, the calculation group will apply, and then it will keep that kind of format string. That way you can, you don't have to worry about that kind of interaction. Okay, so again, you can do the changing the order. You'll notice also if you click on the calc groups itself that you can have more than one calc group, and his precedence here will kind of explain how they work together. So if you want to use two calc groups on the same measure, which one applies first, which one applies next? And it's not as simple as kind of applying next. It's almost, you can think of it as kind of how it nests and builds the single measure description, right? So it has to exchange that selected measure with the measure, then it has to change that new DAX formula in the next selected measure. So it's kind of how it builds, and then it'll evaluate as one. So it's a little bit complicated in that sense, but I've been working on the documentation for that one as well. All right, so here we have it. We have my calc group made. There's my time intelligence. Now I can bring this here. Uh-oh. And if you see an error, there's one more field. Interesting. So that is an interesting error that we have here. Let's see. My demo is not going well today, Brent. Let's see. We have, it looks fine to me. So I'm not quite sure what's happening there.
Great.
So yeah, so if we run into an
going
issue,
all through it.
let's see if we can get, oh, those are my more measures. Let's get this measures. Let's see, let's try a different one. This is order quantity. I see. So let's do orders. Okay, there we go. I was using an implicit measure. That's fine. All right, so now we have this. Now you can kind of see we have the current value, we have the prior year value, we see the year over year, and we can see the year over year percentage. But there's a big problem, right? This year over year percentage should be a percentage, not a number like the orders is. So let's go take a look at something else. So let's do total cost. Actually, there's my total cost. So I'm going to bring in total cost here. Let me take out orders. Actually, I want to do this one, right? So now you see it's all currencies, and also my year-over-year percentage is a currency. Now you can actually change this. This is a cool thing. It's called dynamic format strings. Now calculation groups have always had them, and I also added them on measures, right? So you can do this individually, this next step. But for this one, I'm going to show you on that calc, on this calculation item, I can go ahead and say I want a dynamic format string, which means I want to actually change this format. For calculation items, you can, so this dynamic one, you can actually do as a DAX expression, right? So you can actually have like an if statement, like if it's greater than this number, format it this way. If it's less than this number, format it this way. If the selected measure format string is blah, then you can actually change it, right? You can get really kind of detailed in it. You can get really complicated. You can write lines and lines of DAX formula, or you can be really simple, right? We don't hold you back. So I'm going to go ahead and make a simple DAX. Let me see if I can make that bigger. It is very simple. It's just a string that says, yeah, give me 1,000 comma, and actually just format this a percentage. Thanks. Right. So I can save that. It's on my year-over-year percentage. Right. Now we can come over here and oh, it doesn't show, but that's okay. I have a button over here to help you. There you go. We refresh the visual, and now you can see this one is actually showing as a percentage. You can do really cool stuff with those dynamic format strings. I added them to measures. I have a demo file for that. Let me go see if I can open that real quick, because that one is a cool topic in of itself, right? And you can get into really cool things with it. With calculation groups and calculation items, they apply to kind of all the measures, which is great, but also can have some drawbacks. You have to build in some logic sometimes to kind of exclude certain measures. Like if you want like titles on your visuals with measures and stuff like that, then you can build in some logic in the calculation item to not apply on certain conditions. But for most of it, this is really cool. So now I have one. Now, another thing I like to do with this one is incorporate it with field parameters. Right, so if you go to, I forget where it is. Here it is. Right, so where's my modeling? Right, so parameter, you do field parameter. Now I can put in a bunch of my measures, right? And I can do, let's do orders, and let's do total cost, and maybe we'll do sales and profit, right? And I can create that. So now before you'd actually do this with calculation group. Before they have field parameters, this is another use of calculation groups. But now you actually have field parameters, which is kind of cool. It's a really neat way to kind of have a list of measures you can kind of switch out on the fly. Again, Power BI is not this slow. I have a lot of measures in this model because I was testing. Right, so it's going to add those in. There we go. Right, so now we have this. The way you use it is, let's go find my field parameter. Where did you go? My measures. There we are. Right. So we have these kind of interesting things here, but I can bring. Let's take out total cost. My measures. And we'll bring in orders. Total cost. And you can see it's spinning a little bit. It's going to show my total cost. It's going to show my total sales price. Right. So now I can kind of utilize this even with the fill parameter, and I can switch it out, or I can add the measures in individually. Right. You're not limited in that way. Let me quickly show you. I had it open just the other day, so hopefully it won't be too far for you to find. I have, let's see. So these dynamic format strings you can add individually as well. Let me see if I can show my demo. I have a demo book of that one. So let's open that one. So that's calculation groups, right? You can have more than one. They're extremely versatile. Really great things to add to kind of speed this up. So hopefully you guys are using them, and but now they're even easier to create, right? So if if you haven't used them before, try them out and see how you go with those. A simple example is just do a multiply by 2 and then apply it to all your measures, right? So it's just a quickly easy way to see what it's doing, and then you can kind of go from there. Now here is my demo of dynamic format strings for measures, right? So on an individual measure, right? So this is my sales amount. I have a sales amount measure, and then I have one where you can kind of pick the format, right? So this is my sales amount. It's just simply sum of the sales amount, which is not exciting. But now here what I've done is I create another measure, and I have, just equal to the other one. I'm trying to zoom in, but I'm not doing a very good job. There we go. And then I went ahead and in the format, I went and picked dynamic. And now what it means is I had this additional DAX formula. Now this is where I'm saying, if the selected measure is less than 1,000, then, or if the selected from the slicer has an in it, then we'll format it this way. Otherwise, format it with decimals, right? So I can pick here. Let's see. Get out of this guy. My computer, right? So I have full with decimals, in K, in million. So some people like the M for thousands. I can even use an emoji, whatever you want to do, right? So now I have this kind of user-driven formatting of their visuals. So those of you who maybe want to, I got a comment the other day about, well, we want to show it with a locale difference, right? So if we want to show with a period versus a comma, I actually did that one. You can do that with, it's a bit more complicated, but there's a locale with the format function. Format function is kind of cool, but it changes things for string unless you actually do it in the dynamic format string. And now it's a little bit small. Let me see if I can zoom in. But you'll see here, I have this one is showing thousands with a comma, and this one is showing thousands with a period. And it's based off of Danish, actually, so it being in Denmark and in different currencies this way. So this is just a number, a whole number. Look, this one actually has it above. I did not know it had that. Right, and then if you want to do English, so you have all these different kind of ways. It's very hard to do without that locale parameter that was just added to the format string. And what this one looks like, so this is orders by locale. And if I go over to the dynamic format string, the way I'm doing it is getting the locale from that slicer and then simply applying it on the format of that selected measure. Again, that selected measure is just that placeholder for, hey, whatever measure is looking here. I could actually have typed in orders here, but if I keep it a selected measure, then I can copy and paste this into a different measure, and I don't have to worry about it using a different measure's value because it will, right? So that is the dynamic format strings for measure. These were also just added. And it's kind of bringing that dynamic format strings from calculation groups and calculation items and bring it to measures. So it's tons of really cool things. Like this one has a mixed value. We have a column with dollars and percentage, which is really kind of challenging to work with. I'm not quite sure why we would do this, but if you did have to do this, the dynamic format strings will help you. And then we have kind of annotations. like we can have it show some additional text in addition. Actually, I'm a little zoomed in on that one. Let's see if I can zoom out a little to show you kind of here, right? So I have this one quite big, so you can kind of show a different label. There's actually a visual one too that can kind of do the similar. Here's another annotations example. And then this is the using the locale with a currency conversion example, right? So that way they will show properly not only the currency and converted, but actually show it in the proper locale. And you don't need to know what the format string is for each country. This is a common one that I like, and this is, in the display units on visuals, you can kind of say, do this as kind of smaller numbers, but the dynamic format screens gives you full control on how that's going to display. Exactly what you want it to show, you can get this one to do it with. All right, so that is just a little bit more on those dynamic format strings. Right. Let's see. Any other questions on this or anything else? Brent, you wanted me to cover?
That's awesome. I'm over here like thinking, yeah, I have not put together field parameters and calc groups. That's one amazing thing. And then I didn't know about the dynamic format strings. That is super cool.
Mhm.
So no, not necessarily. I was thinking about locality there.
I have.
You were able to add that localization. Oh yeah, that's what I was going to ask. You mentioned you kind of got a comment from somebody. Can I kind of ask, where are you where are you usually having those interactions, Zoe? Is that like comments on the blog post?
Yeah, comments on the blog post,
Okay.
the Microsoft one, comments on my LinkedIn, that kind of stuff.
Okay.
Obviously we see the ideas forum. That's a bit harder to keep track of. But yeah, if I see comments like that, a lot of times MVPs, they have ways of contacting us as well and let us know. When I do presentations, right? I did a couple engagements with the Power BI and Fabric Summit. I did another user group also this week. So those, anything like this, like even you guys commenting like this, that's how I kind of get those comments in as well. We also get, of course, tickets from customers that come in, complaining about, functionality and stuff like that. Like all those, eventually if it hits my features, that'll kind of come my way in some form. We also have the Power BI Cat team, and they talk with specific customers all the time and get those kind of feedback. So any way I can get any feedback is always welcome. I also have a little video here that I did with Guy in the Cube on the dynamic format strings for measures. If you're interested, I go into that locale example as well. So you can just look for that in Guy in the Cube. That's kind of these examples. And then I think
awesome.
I have in here as well, like this is kind of that flow for the calculation groups. And all that kind of stuff. The other thing the Model Explorer also gives you access to now, which I didn't show before, right? So before, if you wanted to connect to this model, right, you needed this kind of localhost and port number. Like if I wanted to go and connect to this model in SQL Server Management Studio, right, I need this information to do so. If you wanted to kind of do XML there, or if you just wanted to do Tabulator. Now, Tabulator is easy to get to if you have it installed. You just come here and you go there. But if you need this, sometimes I use it for Excel to have a DAX query show in Excel, stuff like that. Anyway, this is very easy to get to now, right? It was kind of difficult. There is a way to do it in kind of the user settings, but we actually put it here and I put a copy button so you can just, paste it in.
That's awesome. So there was one other comment that I didn't quite catch the name. Someone with an H name mentioned that just kind of curious about listing out measures. How to use those info functions to list out the measures, and then and then of course I think everybody you got to hit the juicy stuff and ask about Copilot a little bit. Anything you wanted to show us on Copilot would be amazing.
Sure. So the one I just put out is that Copilot for measure descriptions. We do have a Copilot for DAX Query View. That should be coming out soon. I demoed that at Build last year as a kind of vision demo. We are doing kind of an inline Copilot. It's very cool. I can show a quick demo of that here in a minute. And then, but what I want to show you is these info functions. We actually put some more info functions out this month, and we have some more coming out next month. And then I think I think then we're done. I need to focus on actually documenting them now. So here's the internet new info functions. There's a ton of them, right? You're like, Zoe, why did you release 60 info functions and actually not have any documentation on it, right? These are all the existing TM schema DMVs. So if you're familiar with the DMVs that were available for any analysis services, right? These are the same, but we put them as DAX functions. And the cool thing about these is the original ones were kind of like select star from like this weird syntax like SQL, but it wasn't actually SQL. And you couldn't join them, right? And then they actually had like stuff like table ID in the columns instead of the table name. And you had to kind of join and see the full story. Now you can make a little model to do that, but now we have these info functions. You can do that a little bit easier, right? So we can do evaluate first. And now you can see all the info functions here, right? You can see a lot. One of the ones we just added, by the way, I should be in here, functions, is this guy. Let's see if it works. There you go. So this is actually showing you all the DAX functions available, right? So there are 433, right? And includes the little description and stuff. So if you're ever kind of curious, right? We even have them on the info functions, stuff like that. So this is kind of a new one, but we could do so info.tables is a good one, right? So now I can kind of see these are all the tables in my model. I can make this bigger. But again, you see these IDs and stuff. So what we did is as DAX functions, you can join them. And that's why I have some examples in here of this guy. Let's see if it runs for me. There we go. So here we have all the measures in the model. Now I have over 1,400 measures in this model, right? They're not that exciting. Most of them are just duplicates of the same one, just to kind of test out how it would do with 1,400 measures. So you'll see that a lot of these measures are the same, but you can kind of see this home table. Now, the way I did this is, I had a variable for my measures, and you can see how we're renaming columns in DAX. We use select columns. So we select columns, we get the info, and I can now rename that name column to measure, the description to just the smaller version, expression to DAX formula, and table ID as table ID. So I just kept the same name. And then I had the tables column, and that's the info.tables. And you can see again, I can hover and see the description here. And then I renamed this one to, so the ID, I needed it to be renamed to table ID to match here so that I could do the natural left join. So I did that. And then a name again is not that exciting, so I wanted to name it table. And then I use another variable to actually combine them with a natural left outer join. And then I returned, and I again use the select columns. I don't really need to for this one. Well, I wanted to rename table to home table at this point. So I have the combined, and that's what we see outputted here. Now, limitation on this is you can't just like copy this, paste it into a calculated table and have my model self-documented. That would be really cool. We have working through kind of making that possible, but it's not available just yet. But right now, what you can do is make a new model, connect it to this model, and have those DAX queries running. And so you can have another model that's live documenting a previous model. Another thing I also tried, which I thought would be cool, is I tried in Power Query to list. I found out how to list all the semantic models in a workspace. I could provide a workspace GUID and I could list them all. And then what I wanted to do is connect and create these tables for everyone and every model in my workspace. Anyway, Power Query blocked me from doing that, unfortunately. But it was very cool up until the point it didn't work. But you can do stuff like, I think people have been using these also in the Python Senpai, the Senpai link, the semantic model Python link. I don't have a demo of that, but it has some really cool functionality. All right, so this is the measure one, and that's shown here. Again, if you have those descriptions, those show as well. And then we also have, so I did show how you can kind of do it. You can copy and paste it into Excel. You can copy and paste into a new table in the model, right? We don't limit you for doing that. It's just having it kind of done live, doing it as a calculated table is the only thing we limit. Let's see, and then we have, what is this one? So this one is showing my columns. Let's see if this one works. right? So this is showing me all the columns in my model, if they're a calculated column or if they're just a data column, those kind of things. If I come back here, I have an additional one here, so I can actually add an additional value. So maybe I want to see where are all the calculated columns in this model. I can actually bring that in here. So I'm running 2 additional queries. So on my second one, I see, okay, there's 2 calculated columns, and these are the 2 calculated columns that I have, right? So you can kind of get into it that way. Another thing I showed in my blog as well, like this is kind of long. You can always hover over here and kind of see what these are. You can always expand it, that kind of stuff, right? These ones aren't too impressive. They're just mostly easy sums. So yeah, so that's kind of on the info functions. And if you are curious as to kind of where they're coming from, let's see if I can. There is some analysis service documentation. When I do I'm working on kind of a link to explain more about the info functions and kind of where they're from. But the idea here is that they would be just a DAX equivalent of those existing DMVs. Brandon, you had a question on the future of version control in PBI. So that one is something that I think we're working on. It's not one of the ones that I'm driving. So just keep an ear out for that one.
I think Zoe, it's kind of funny when they talked about PBIPs. Weren't you on the video announcement on that at Build though, or part of the Build videos they did?
Yeah, Ruby and I
Okay.
tend to do a lot of videos together, and
I
because
see.
we have
Gotcha.
these experiences that we kind of work in parallel with. Like we were working on kind of a slide like this one, like self-service versus professional, right? You have the developer mode with the PBIP, and you have we kind of wanted to show like he works on a lot of these ones. That he does like the Tyndall and the Git integration and the PBIP, all those kind of the DevOps, all that kind of stuff. And then I work on kind of Model Explorer and the DAX Query View and Direct Lake stuff, right? So we end up doing a lot of stuff together. A lot of our features are very compatible. And then we work on kind of
Cool.
we have, Power BI has a whole bunch of different ways of doing things, right? One of the things like professional BI and self-service, and really this professional BI is not like to say, lots of experience, but a lot of times it means kind of a wide distribution of your semantic models, right? So these are stuff you're making, they're either with a lot of data or they have a high distribution, right? You want to have a bit more fine control and you want to have more features and you want to have more features. Whereas in a self-service, it's like, okay, I want to create a report. I have this data. I just want to visualize it and move on with my day. Or I want to use a report that's already built and get the most out of it so I can have the data I need for my next meeting, right? So in this one, like the professional BI we're talking about, and I think we're going to change this to kind of enterprise BI, right? So a lot of the fabric content, right? So you can do modeling with Tyndall. You can do like code version of modeling instead of dragging and dropping and using the UI. This is, so otherwise you would use the modeling in Power BI Desktop and the Power BI service, right? Using that kind of GUID. Or you can use them in tandem. And we have, the DevOps deployment pipelines. We have Fabric APIs for Git integration, right? And there's also the service deployment pipelines, right, for workspaces. So you can do these in both ways. And we're not saying one is better than the other. It's really tailored to what you need to do with Power BI. I have the Model Explorer. You can create relationships, quick measures, and assisted modeling. DAX Query View, and there's that really cool Explore feature in the service now where you can kind of just drag and drop and create a pivot. And then we have like kind of direct leg, advanced refresh to create scale out, at the bottom here. Whereas, self-service, you could have those, ad hoc models from Excel and syncing automatically from your OneDrive, right? All these really cool, we end up having to kind of cater to both spectrums, and that's a really great experience in both sides. And when you want to do it one way or the other, it's all good, and we support both of them. And then, okay, looks like we have another question. So do you need to enable Model Explorer preview, or does it come with the latest version? I don't see it in December 2023. Well, good luck for you. There is a new version out as of last week, so go get that February one. I believe if you don't see it, then you just have to go over to the options dialog. And in the preview features here, I'll just go ahead and turn that on, right? If you don't see it, you'll find it in here, the Model Explorer and Calc Group authoring, right? So you can go ahead and turn that on. If you don't see any of the copilots, or if you don't see any of the like the DAX preview, that kind of stuff, that's where you go turn those features on. And then for the service, if you're in the service here and you're like, okay, how do I edit? This is grayed out. Usually it'll say in the tooltip. The way you turn that one on is if you go to the workspace settings and then you go to general, there's this data modeling settings here. So this is kind of how you can turn on that editing of the models here. And that's the only thing. You'll actually see it. The Model Explorer, because it's the web editing in the service is also in private preview. Once you're in there, like you can see all those other kind of things. Oh, I turned off my fabric capacity. There we go. So once you have your fabric capacity turned back on, then it will show here. Let me see, I think I have it on my other screen too. Right here. So here I'm in here and I can do that, you know, Copilot stuff here, and you'll see the Model Explorer and everything and doing a Calc Group authoring once you've turned that on. Alrighty. Brent, any other topics?
Well, I mean, you covered so much. This is awesome. Did you mention something about like Copilot and auto documentation? I think that would be a really cool
Yeah, so the only one we
topic to
have
cover last.
is the measure description one, right? So
Okay.
right,
Did
so
I
that
miss
one is
that? I'm
coming.
sorry.
Oh,
I hope I
and
didn't miss
then
that.
the DAX Query View, I have a little demo I can share real quick. So let's see, I have a pre-recorded one. So let's see, that's my DAX Query View, and then I have my demo. So I'm gonna have to present real quick. So it goes full screen, otherwise it's kind of small. If I can find out how to present, okay, here we go. And then I just have to flip this to the other screen. There we go. All right, so let's skip ahead. You get to see my very fast direct link demo. Going, ready, stopped. Oh, I see. Okay. So we have my DAX Query View stuff. This one's actually a cool slide here, right? I have this in my presentation. It kind of shows how to kind of utilize that kind of measure workflow, right? This is showing the info measures is the same as the select star from the TM schema measures, right? And then we have, you know, DAX functions and Y. Another one, so this is the DAX Query Copilot. So you'll see, you know, actually going towards an inline Copilot instead of a, you know, kind of chat one like before. And then we have a little demo here. So here I've gone over to DAX Query View. I've clicked this button and I can actually type in a prompt. And it's going to go and give me back a DAX query. Now this one you do have to, this is a Fabric Copilot, so you have to have the requirements for the Copilot there. And I can run that and I can see that that query has been generated. Right, so you'll see also now I'm going to go back in and I can actually say, what is this query doing, right? It already kind of said what it's doing when it generated it, right? You see these comments here that are, let me put my pointer on. I don't have my pointer, sorry. I was pointing, but you can't see anything. Here we go. So you can see here in these comments, it's kind of saying what it's doing in each part. And I can say, hey, just explain to me what this is doing. So maybe you got this and somebody else, or you forgot what you did the other day, right? It'll go in here and explain what all this query is doing. So you can kind of see that in natural language. So we have natural language to DAX queries and then DAX queries to natural language. And finally, the other thing you can do is actually just ask it DAX questions, right? So what's the difference between this one I did summarize columns and select columns, right? And you can go do this in the search engine and go find a blog as well. But this is, you know, we're trying this out for kind of inline and in product so that you can kind of get these questions answered for you.
That's really cool. So, I mean, and this is, I mean, we're all learning about Copilot and generative AI in general, but is this, I guess, is this, is this likely to be the best source? Let me ask it this way. Is this the best way to do this for DAX, is using like Copilot, as opposed to, I don't know, other LLMs? Or one thing I keep kind of keeping my ear to the ground for is like specific models, right? So is there a DAX specific model, or is that something that's just going to be part of Copilot?
So
You might not know. I understand.
yeah, exactly. So that's kind of a more technical detail, right? But yeah, the Copilot here, we are what we do is kind of do we want to make sure that in the DAX Query View, right, it is focusing on DAX queries and DAX, right? As you said, you can go to kind of the Bing Copilot and ask about some of those questions as well. The idea was just kind of make it available to you where you're working, right? And so we have to that was kind of what would be most helpful in DAX Query View.
That's extremely helpful.
Yep, and we also have a question like done to internalize features such as discovering which fields are unused in your report, right? So you have there is a DMV that we are surfacing, like the discover dependencies one. It's an info function as well, and you can pass it a query, and it can tell you kind of, and it can even show you kind of what's in your. I think, let's see if this works here. Dependencies. See which one is it? Forget which one it is. Discover, no, okay. We may not have it just yet. So sorry, it's calc, I think it's calculation. No, okay. There is one that I think we can actually just use it as is in the selector. Some of them, we have a couple that will actually work with the existing syntax. And then that one will work. It'll red squiggly, but it will actually show you results. That one will show you kind of per query. But we are looking at ways to kind of build upon the DAX query view, and that's one of the ones that has come up, right? We can say, okay, well, how many of these are being used, not only in this report, but even maybe if you're connected to like a publish report. Maybe we can publish model, we can see kind of the downstream, but those are just kind of in the ideation, but we have heard that feedback as before. So that's great feedback to give. The other thing on DAX query view, you were showing you can't see it on a live connect unless you change it over to the direct query over kind of semantic model, right? Then you can see it. But we are actually going to bring it into kind of a live connect scenario, so you can run queries. Obviously, you won't be able to do viewing of the measures and saving and back measures because you don't have that permission when you're in live connect, and also bringing DAX query view to the web. So those are things that are coming in the next year. All right. So have you guys been using Direct Lake yet, or have any interest in learning about Direct Lake?
I think my short answer would be honestly no. I've seen a demo of it and I haven't been using it. And yes, I do want to start using it. That's one thing I'm excited about. I've been setting that as the conference. Like, this is, if I haven't played with it by then, I will get my hands on, like start using Direct Lake by then.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, please show us. We need to know.
Sure. So one of the things, so Direct Lake, one of the things with Fabric, everything goes into the one lake, right? So how do you get data into the one lake? How do you utilize the data in the one lake? How you get data, and you can use a lake house, warehouse, you can use data flows, you can use shortcuts to other lake houses. You can do all kinds of really cool things, right, to get data into the one lake. And once you have it in the one lake, right, you're like, okay, now what? Now I have billions of rows in my one lake. Now you can use Power BI just like you could before, right? You have that SQL Analytics endpoint on the lakehouse, and you can actually write SQL queries, right? And you can connect to it as a direct query or import. But we have this new mode, which is Direct Lake, right? And what's cool about this is, so the way that analysis services, like the semantic model, like when you import the data in, the way it stores it in memory is in this kind of columnar format, right? This proprietary format that we had. Well, it turns out it's actually quite similar to Parquet files and the Delta Lake, the Delta tables that are available in OneLake. So just like direct query we had here, we could go and the runtime, right? When you're looking at a report, it sends a DAX query to the analysis services. Analysis services say, oh, okay, cool. I need to go get that data from the SQL database. I convert that to a SQL query. I say, hey, SQL database, give me this data. It says, okay, sends it back, and then it shows in the visual, right? The problem is that conversion and waiting for the SQL database can be a little bit slow, right? You have to have a pretty beefy one. Now here, the DAX query says, hey, analysis services, okay, let me go read the data, and it can read the Delta Lake, and then it can bring that data back and show it to the visual. So it's really fast, right? It's and you don't have to schedule refresh, so you have all the benefits of direct query, but without the drawback of at this kind of same performance as import, without the drawback of import, which is where you're moving data and you're scheduling a refresh. You don't have to do that anymore, right? The data stays here. This data is stored in the OneLake and is continually stored in the OneLake. We're not moving it in import, and we're also not, bringing this translation layer into the step. It can read it directly, right? It seems a little bit too good to be true. There are, of course, also kind of caveats, and I can get into those, right? This is like a little demo. It's just really showing you how to create it. I can show you that here in a minute. But here I have kind of, because we also have that SQL Analytics endpoint off a Lakehouse, we can do SQL queries as well. So I actually can create a direct query report off the same data I'm doing direct lake with, and I can show the difference in kind of the timings. These are like 2 to 4 seconds each to load, and these are all sub-second, right? 100 milliseconds to load the same visuals. Now, one thing so this is kind of, this is something that we talk about a lot, is this fallback, right? So direct query has this, you can go direct to the lake, but in the cases where it can't go directly to the lake, it will fall back and run a SQL, fall back and do direct query, right? So this happens if you have defined a view in the warehouse, right? If you've defined a view, that's in SQL, right? We can't read it out of direct lake because it's not in direct lake, it's in the warehouse. So we have to use direct query to read that view. If you put row level security on the warehouse, right, then all the queries have to roll back to VQ because it needs to double check with the warehouse to make sure you can see some data, right? So those are the things. Now, so that way, now you're not getting that really cool fast performance from direct lake. It's going to fall back to direct query. So that's kind of how this works. So if you want to get the best experience out of direct lake, you want to make sure your transformations are done here. The views are materialized as delta tables, and then you'll have the best experience. We also added in a property. Right, so automatically it has that fallback to direct query. Now, that always makes sure your visuals are showing data, which is great, but direct query is a little bit slower, right? So it'll take longer for those visuals to come back. If you don't want to do that, you want to see that error. You're like, I want to see the error. I want to fix it. You can actually just switch it and say, only do direct lake. And if it can't do direct lake, it'll show an error. And that'll show you very quickly where you're going to have those fallback points. You can also use this toggle to change it to direct query only. So always fall back. So that's saying, well, what is my report going to look like in the worst case scenario? Worst case scenario is directly doesn't work. How's it going to work, right? So we have those. This is brand new. This just came out that you can actually control that fallback. But this is the kind of idea, right? Is you have a lot of data in the OneLake. You are accessing it in the semantic model, and you're always going to get the latest version from the OneLake. Here I have one of the other ways I've been thinking about explaining direct lake as versus import, right? How does this work if you're building a model in import versus direct lake, right? So in import only works if you have your tables in Power BI, right? So you've gone ahead and pulled those data in. You see you go to Power Query, you've added a table, you hit OK, and then you see the data loading in, right? So that's when it's stored in the analysis services storage. Now, direct lake only works if you have your data, your tables in the delta tables, right? So in the OneLake, they are delta tables, right? And so that's kind of how that works. Now, data sources to tables. So how do I get my data, right? In import, you use Power Query. You go that transform data. Multiple data sources are added via Power Query as tables, right? So you schedule to refresh when the semantic model is published to the workspace. So when you hit publish, you publish it up to a workspace, and you'll go to schedule a refresh. And what you're scheduling is that Power Query to run and get data from those different sources, put them into tables, and then show them in your semantic model, right? Now, in Fabric, you can grab multiple sources into your lakehouse, right? So you can use Notebook, you can use data flows, you can upload a file, you can use shortcuts, you can use data factory. Anyway, any way you do it, it has to land as a delta table, right? And now you schedule to refresh in the workspace. So any of those kind of orchestration, you even have a pipeline to orchestrate the whole thing together. Like say if I have 3 data flows and I have a notebook and then I want to refresh my model, you can create a pipeline to like say, okay, refresh this, and then refresh the model, right? But this is the same. So the transform data now is in your lakehouse. Now you want to do semantic modeling, right? So this is the cool part, right? You want to add tables, you want to define those relationships, add some measures, do some calculation groups, do low level security, whatever you want to do here, right? Import, you just go ahead and, once you hit close and apply, they show up in your model and you start creating relationships. So now in the Direct Lake, you go and say new semantic model in the Lakehouse, and you pick the tables you want, and now you're in the same interface as before. You're creating relationships, doing measures, calculation groups, whatever you want to do, right? And this is a Direct Lake, and this is the import. Now, now you would, here in the Direct Lake, you would have it already published. It's already in the workspace. You don't have to do a publishing step, right? And it's also already connected to the Lakehouse, which is through single sign-on by default. If you define row level security, you can go ahead and actually change that to a stored credential, right? And that's what you'd want to do for row level security. And now for import, you actually have to go and publish it to the workspace, set up your refresh, or if you didn't want to refresh at all, you don't have to worry about that step, right? And then you can create reports, right? So in import, you can create the report. In the PBX, you're creating the model. You would have to go and in Direct Lake, or you can go do a live connect to it in a publish space, or you can go and create a report in the service from the publish space. Right now, you're already in the publish space with Direct Lake, so you can create it in the web, or you can go ahead and open up desktop and live connect to the published model, and then create reports just like you would before. So creating reports is the same for both. And then how would you share it, right? Now you have a report built, you've got all this lovely data. You would create an app if the workspace and share it widely that way, right? So those are some. The only difference really here is this guy, right? Where are you bringing the data to before you create that model? So I hope this makes sense. This is a work in progress of kind of explaining the Direct Lake and how it kind of differs from like how you would normally create a semantic model.
Yeah, that's really amazing, Zoe. Yeah, I'm echoing what Laura's saying. That's super helpful. So we still have we clearly have some learning to do on kind of how to master. And so just to be clear, Direct Lake is that confused me when I originally grabbed onto the term OneLake. So Direct Lake is just connecting to OneLake. It's a new connection type for Power BI and it's specific to Power BI, right? Would anything else be using Direct Lake? Okay, no.
It is specific to Power BI, and it really is. I'm not sure if this one does. Like, it's really, think of it. Actually, I like this one better. Right? Think of this as your storage. Like this is your storage, right? Before, when you imported it, it was kind of there. But with a OneLake is cool, right? Now you can have data, and now you can use that for multiple workloads, like not just Power BI. Right here, we're just saying, yeah, Power BI uses it, go away. Here we can say like notebooks can use it. You can use it anywhere like OneLake connection. You can kind of see it. Like you can use there's a OneLake Explorer that kind of shows like OneDrive but OneLake. It shows you all the sources and all the tables in there. It's kind of cool. There's also another cool thing that you can do. So this is kind of how you create those Direct Lake models. Now you're in that Direct Lake kind of space, there's also a feature. I should have a slide on it, but I don't yet. I want to add in a slide for it. Is you can have one lake. So one lake is kind of where everybody can access it in Fabric, right? Including, right, we're going through the lake house to kind of build that space that then Direct Lake's using. Now you can also, what I've seen some customers do, and I think I have it down here. I might have taken it out. I might have taken it out. Actually, I think it might be at the end. Okay, so what they do is like we have shortcut capability, right? So you can have one lake house, people have brought some data into, and now you want to build a lake house, but you want some of the data in their lake house, right? So you can shortcut to that table. So like say if you have dimension tables or your product tables and some teams managing all of the products dim tables, right? So you always want to grab the latest list of the products your company sells. You can shortcut to the lakehouse into your lakehouse and then add in additional data and then build the model off of that. Just like you would like in Power Query, like in Power BI file, right? If I go to transform data and then I say, oh, I connect to whoever has the latest product data and I bring it in and then I can join it to my other tables, right? Instead of doing it here, you're just gonna do it in the lakehouse.
That's amazing. Okay. Okay. I think one last question might just be is I know you've made all these slides available somewhere, but do we get them from blog posts or is there a better central place to try to look for them?
So yeah, so some of these I've already used in presentations, some I have not. But yeah, I don't really have a central way of
Okay.
those things. I'll probably try and put some in my personal blog. I want to do something like this in my personal blog, and it gets kind of if it gets too like in the weeds, I generally do it on my personal blog instead of the main blog.
Nice.
There's a bigger audience in there. For mine, I'm like, I'm gonna go deep into this, and I'm gonna explain everything to you. And then the in marketing is not quite as excited if I do that in the main blog. So, but yeah, so that's what. But I still have my personal
Marketing.
blog. Like if you want to get into the weeds on row level security with Direct Lake, I have a post for you. And then the UI for that should be coming soon. Right now we don't have it, so.
That's great. Well,
But yeah.
I just thank you very much for walking us through all of this, Zoe. And really, if I only scheduled us 90 minutes, I know I should have done more, but um, I have to drop. But the truth is, I guess if others have questions and want to interact, and if you're able to stay longer, then that's great. It doesn't mean everything has to end, but I did want to take the opportunity to just thank you for offering to do this and just adding so much value to us. I really, really appreciate it. And
Yeah.
we definitely want to be a good resource for you. So we'll make sure to send you that feedback and just let us know how else we can be helpful to you and the
Yep.
product team as well.
Yeah. Oh, also on the feedback thing,
Yeah.
I forgot. I totally forgot. I added share feedback links on like the DAX Query View and the measure description Copilot. If you go to the options dialog, there's a link there you can click and it'll create, and it's going to go to a form. It's an anonymous form. But that's a way to get feedback to me. I watched that very carefully during public preview. You can put anything in there and that goes directly to me. And then we go through that feedback very carefully with the engineers and design, right? They do a phenomenal job. It's not just me building these things. We have an excellent team of engineers, an excellent team of designers that I work with every day. And we get this up. And then, of course, the testers and all that, and everybody else. I mean, it's a huge, huge organization. And these features require a lot of kind of cross-team collaboration. But the feedback channels, like we try to make them very open, especially during public preview, where you really need your feedback, right? If something's confusing to you, don't quite get it, let us know. We really need that feedback. So thank
So
you.
you said do that like in Power BI desktop under the file and options
Yep.
menu. Is that right? Or okay.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
so there's a shared
Okay.
there's a that learn more link, and then they'll have like a share feedback link too. Sometimes
Gotcha.
some PMs
In
do
that
it
options
on
window. Okay.
exactly. Sometimes I go to
Cool.
the Power BI forums. I have mine currently in a form, just so it's a bit more anonymous, and then people can give some feedback. I may do one on the a more public one as well, but so far it's working out well.
Wonderful. Okay. Well, thank you so much, very much. And I'm going to go ahead and drop off, but I hope you have a wonderful day. And thanks everybody for being here.
Thank
We'll
you.
meet
I do
again
have to
March
I have to run as well,
21st, I
so
think.
Brent, so
Okay.
thank you so
All
much
right.
for
Sounds
hosting
good.
me. I really
Yeah.
appreciate it.
Look for our next meeting on March 21st. Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Thank you.